Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode, everyone. I'm joined by Scott Stulen, who is the CEO of the Seattle Art Museum. Scott took on that role in August of last year. Prior to coming to Seattle, Scott served as the president and CEO of the Philbrook Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He also held leadership roles at the Minneapolis Art Museum and at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. Scott is a practicing visual artist, a DJ, and a dad. His career has been defined by his commitment to making museums more inclusive and relevant to the places and communities they serve, and by his innovative approach to programming and curation, including the creation of the first ever Internet Cat Video Festival. We discuss that and much more. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the CEO of the Seattle Art Museum, Scott Stulen. Appreciate you coming over on a Friday afternoon. We're seeing a lot of each other.
We are.
Lately.
Yes, this is like a thing now.
We're going to get sick of each other, I think, at this rate, man. No, but it's been fun having you speak to our board and speaking alongside you last week or whenever that was, and hearing and learning more about your background. And we're lucky to have you. And
oh, thank you. I feel really lucky to be here. So it's a great time not only to be at the museum, but also to be in Seattle. So I feel like there's exciting things ahead.
We found you, right? The city and the leadership of Sam and the search committee.
They found me and reached out and made a compelling case and kind of talked me into coming here. But the process for these museum director ones, it's super secretive. It takes like 9-10 months of these things, and it starts out with like an email that say, "Hey, would you look at this?" Which is always the code word to like hint. Would you want to throw your name in on this job? So I had been looking at. Not actively, but kind of looking that if a job became open in the Pacific Northwest, it'd be an area I really wanted to pursue. So it's nice when it all kind of works out.
And you were on the job in August?
August, very end of August. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of started for kind of jumping in last week of August.
What's been most surprising, most rewarding in your first, 7-8 months?
Yeah, it's, a lot of things. I think there's things about the city, just getting to know Seattle more, which, I'd visited many times before, but it's different actually moving here. But I think there's things like even with our family, like the school system here is amazing, the public school system, which we've been very impressed with. So I think there's things like that are always kind of nice to affirm a move to the city.
You settled in North Seattle, right?
We're in View Ridge neighborhood, so Northeast. And but just being able to 30 minutes drive outside the city and you're in the mountains, or being able to go out on water and be able to kind of have all these activities. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be with professional sports in a city again. And I'd be even happier when we get basketball. So
Here.
So those things I think are wonderful to be able to have. But then kind of just the rich cultural fabric of this city, from music to film to restaurants, and of course being in the arts myself, but having all of that here as well. And then there's things about the museum specifically of kind of getting to know Sam a little bit more, and getting to know kind of its history, and getting to know what's working, and where we have opportunities to do even more going forward.
Seattle freeze, yes or no?
No.
All right.
No, I although I grew up in Minnesota and I'm from the Midwest, so we just call it, that's Minnesota nice. It's just a different name for it, but that's a thing. And but no, for us actually, people have been incredibly welcoming, and both in our our neighborhood. It helps having kids. You get introduced almost immediately through sports and music and other things, so we've been able to connect very quickly there. But I've found everybody to be incredibly welcoming and helpful.
Was it a hard case to your kids to make to uproot and move to Seattle? Because they're 9 and 12?
They are now 10 and 14. Okay. At the time, we're 9 and 13. When we presented this, and as you know, with a lot of these jobs, it's way down the line before they get looped into the process.
You're under an NDA with your family in this process?
Yes. Are you really? We really were, actually. So, so to our 13-year-old, we said, hey, we might be moving to Seattle. And he said, that's great. You can move whatever you want, but I'm staying here. And then
it's the worst age to move, I think.
It is. And then he marched up to his room on his phone to text all of his friends, and I had to take his phone and say, explain what NDA is. So you're not doing that. And here's why. Because partly there was this period of time between us basically accepting the offer and it being public that was about a month. And that was the month of telling the kids, you can't say anything to anybody.
You can't complain to anybody.
You can't, and you can't tell your friends. Yeah. So that was, and I will say they didn't.
Yeah.
They held with all of it. And to the positive side, so we said, all right, we're going to go out to Seattle. You can see the city. We haven't signed anything yet. We can, see a school.
Took them on the sales trip.
Exactly. So we came out, we did, all the things downtown and, went up on the wheel and we, the mountain was out and we got to see all of it.
Was it sunny and 72 degrees?
It was. It was beautiful. Did the Space Needle and we went to a Mariners game and did the
town.
We did the town.
Yeah.
And we went after like 2 days, they were like, all right, let's do this. and they've loved it. So it's been a good move.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So they've settled in.
They've settled in. Yes. They've both been. Our oldest actually is at Eckstein Middle School, and he's playing the jazz band there. And they got first in state 2 weeks ago.
Right
so
on.
he's like feeling really good about that, and I think definitely really ready for high school. He went to Roosevelt last night for his little preview to look around and everything.
Yeah.
And I think for, my wife and I, it was like that kind of realization of like we're soon to have high school kids.
Yeah.
But no, they're doing great, and my wife's really enjoying it as well. And no, we feel that this is home. So it's really good.
You've gotten a warm welcome, not a chilly one.
Not a chilly
That's
welcome.
good.
Yeah.
So I know you grew up an artist. You're a visual artist.
Yes. Yeah.
You thought you would go. You were mentioning earlier before we started recording. You thought you would go teach.
That's the thought, and I will say that's partly maybe the fault of art school. I mean, they tell you going in art school. They warn you, but then you do it anyway, and you kind of go in. And I did a lot of my undergrad's in sculpture, and then I took a couple years off and did a lot of weird in between jobs. I worked as a florist for a while. I worked at an art supply store. I sold sports memorabilia on eBay for a year.
Since it's Valentine's Day, I have to ask you: did you feel bad ripping people off on Valentine's Days as a florist?
Because why? Your makeup, you need to make all your money there so that the rest of the year when you're throwing stuff away, you're good.
Okay. That makes sense.
But I will say the elevated number of things and the desperation at 5 to 6 o'clock of people coming in.
What is it? It's almost 4, and right after this. You know
there
where I'm
go.
headed? Yeah.
Exactly. I still have to do something today too. So
yeah.
But no, there's something to that. So anyway, but I went to grad school to my master's in painting and drawing, and but I wanted to teach. I really did want to teach, and so I applied for a bunch of teaching positions. I ended up not getting them immediately, which is not unusual at all. But I took a summer job at a small visual arts center teaching summer camp for kids, and they got a federal grant they weren't expecting to get. I got hired to be an educator there that fall, and I got introduced to this other job option other than make your work and sell that, teach, or something else. And this was that something else. And for me, it was a perfect fit. And I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah.
So this small art center I was at was in Rochester, Minnesota, right by the Mayo Clinic. And it was small enough, and we had a really young staff. So everybody there was under 30 years old, I think, at the time. So I gave every tour. I hung drywall. I ran electrical. I built the website. I shot all the video for the place. I wrote grants. And so you learn all these different aspects of the museum. And in a way, it was just kind of an extension of my education. But also I realized that as much as I liked making my artwork and reaching people that way, I could reach even more people through this platform that was the museum. And I did a lot of things that were kind of starting to think about how do we introduce art to a broader audience? How do we make it more accessible to people? How do we make it less elite and far more a place that people can kind of gather and come together and using art as that vehicle?
Was there, and you've gotten a lot of attention for some pretty incredible, innovative installations and exhibits and other things where you've been, and the presentation you gave to the board and that I've seen you give in other parts of town here has just wowed everybody that's been in the room. And they're like, let's do this in Seattle. This is great. We got the right guy. How did you get to that thought of like, I want to think differently about how we use our grounds and these buildings and expand the audience in this way and be super creative? And maybe through the medium of this podcast, we're not able to have the great visuals that you've shown around some of these
can go
things you've done.
search.
But maybe share with us a few of those things
Sure, I
to
can,
give people a
yeah.
sense of what we're talking about, and then talk about where did that kind of mindset come from for you? Was there a moment or some influential person or event?
Yeah, and I think I was put in an environment where I had some very supportive people in the early institutions, because I went from the smaller center to the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and I had a boss there that was incredibly supportive in the education department. She knew and hired me as an artist to come in. I think coming at things as an artist is what been differentiated me a little bit from some of my colleagues that maybe came from more of an academic background. So I'm really thinking about things from
And to that point, you've made the statement that you're one of, or the only.
I'm the only major museum director of an art museum in the country that has a studio art degree instead of an art history degree, or coming from a finance background.
Yeah. There
used to be two of us, and I was just one. And I think there's a certain kind of strength in that, and it's not and there's a problem with any of those other routes. It's just somewhat unusual. But I think I have a high risk tolerance. I'm also really like to be able to try things, experiment about things, knowing that things don't have to be perfect, and we can kind of learn from it going forward and have a little bit more of a nimble kind of mindset. But also ability of really thinking about kind of stretching those definitions of what is art, stretching the definitions of what you'd expect at a museum. But that core is how do we bring people together and connect people to ideas through art? And so I found some unique ways of approaching that, from having musicians in the galleries to having full things where we curated in parking garages attached to the museum, and doing compositions there with all the echoing happening in parking garages. We worked with the Minneapolis Police Department and actually had a detective come in with a lie detector.
That's right.
And set up so if people could not prove that they didn't like the gallery. So if they proved that they didn't like the gallery experience, we'd give them their money back. So we had a stack of $20 bills in the lie detector. And we didn't give away any $20.
And the musicians in the museum wasn't just like a busker in the corner.
No, it was like you checked out a musician at the front desk that would walk around, and you'd wear headphones, and they would follow behind you with a guitar and play a soundtrack for you through the galleries. We built igloos and had concerts for 2 people at a time with 3 musicians in an igloo outside Minneapolis. We did, 500 people doing yoga and iron pours, and we did a whole variety of different types of, adult summer camps. We did a project, we called it this. We did a car break-in workshop for kids, where we taught kids how to break into cars, and how to pop locks and how to hotwire a car. Little bit, now everybody might know this, but you cannot hotwire a car that's post 1993 because the computer chip, you'll fry the chip in the car. I didn't know this. We found out through this workshop when one of the kids went home and tried it on his parents' car. So we found out. But we worked with some artists that actually did this as a project. And they actually did it as a safety project. So if you get locked in a trunk, how you actually can kick the taillight out and get out of the trunk.
Wow.
But we did it as kind of a whole safety thing with this, but kind of under that guise.
So were you as these ideas came to you and your team, were you pitching them to your board or committees? Or were you just doing them and then sort of asking for forgiveness later and hoping they were successful?
Yeah, or the latter.
Yeah.
This is where having a really good kind of support system and a boss. So my Sarah Schultz, who was really became my mentor there, she would let me run on a lot of this stuff. And sometimes I get pulled in the office and said, that thing you did, that was great. Very cool. Love that you did it. Give me heads up next time. And I learned through that. And I learned a lot after I actually left how much cover I actually had gotten.
In Minneapolis.
Yeah. And so the big project, and the one that kind of caused the most internal tension, but also the one that kind of opened the door for me, is we did an internet cat video festival.
Yeah.
So we took, this is 2012. So think about that internet environment of 2012. But myself and my intern, Katie Hill at the time, had this idea, what if we take YouTube videos that you watch on your phone and online that you send to people, but it's a solitary experience, and turn it into an outdoor big film festival. And cat videos was, feel like the thing of the moment. So we put out a call for nominations for the first Internet Cat Video Festival. We got 10,000 submissions in 2 weeks. And then we sent out a press release, and it went viral within 4 hours. Gawker picked it up, and it just went And the idea of having something with this high art museum and then, cat videos was
the kind of fish out of water deal.
Yeah. I mean, that was like very...
you got a nice little
got a
piece
bump
in
there.
New York Times.
We did.
New Yorker cartoon.
New Yorker cartoon.
Did you know the New Yorker cartoon was coming out?
No.
Yeah.
I finally got sent after it happened. So the big thing with that is that nobody thought it was going to be a big deal. We thought maybe 50 people would show up. We'd have like a couple cases of beer and we'd watch some cat videos. And then, 12,000 people showed up.
And now it's been replicated, right?
Yeah, it's been going for now 13 years now.
So this is funny. I was at having lunch last week at Cinque Terre around the corner here, and this sounds like I'm kissing your ass, but I was singing your praises to the folks I was having lunch with, because I think it was right after you presented to our board, and just saying like, oh, we got a great new leader at SAM, and started the internet cat video thing, and the server like overheard us. She's like, I've been to one of those. It's so awesome. It was so cool.
There's a Seattle connection. The person that won the first Internet Cat Video Festival is a filmmaker in Seattle.
Oh, really?
That he did it as his graduate film project. And it's this French, it's Henri Le Chat Noir. It's this French cat with subtitles and stuff over like a French film.
Yeah.
But he won the first festival. And then he and I started co-hosting for the next year for the festival. And then after basically the Walker decided they didn't want to do it anymore, he took over and he's been running it for now the last 9 years. And he curates it every year. But and now after all of these things, I live less than a mile from him now.
Are you going to be able to retire on the royalties from your internet cat video?
Oh, so I wish
creation?
I could, but no. Yeah,
you didn't franchise?
I didn't franchise. It's one of those things that, the institution I work for had a lot of control over that. Now, I would say I had a very lucrative deal set up at one point in time to sell it that, sometimes they wait too long. So I have presented on it at numerous things. I've presented at South by Southwest a couple times on it.
Cool.
The one year that was the most surreal is I presented part of the film portion of South by. And they have the green room there with all the people that are speaking in that time slot. So Mark Cuban was there. I believe Seth Meyers was there. Part of the Game of Thrones cast was there. But we had Grumpy Cat, and all anybody cared about was the cat.
You had the actual cat.
Yeah,
with
the actual
you.
Cat. Yeah. We planted the cat just sits there. Okay. So it was sitting on my computer because it was warm. But we actually placed Grumpy Cat in the audience to ask the first question during the Q&A. So.
And then the Lowrider Festival.
Yeah, we did a thing. So this is when I went from the Walker to spend a little bit of time in Indianapolis as a curator, and then I was the director of the Philbrook Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We did a show there fairly early in my tenure with Cheech Marin's collection of Chicano art. So he has this large collection, and with that we did a program where we had lowrider car clubs from around the region come, and we had these all lined up. And people don't know that museum. It's this kind of Italianate mansion that was built in the 1930s, like oil Phillips petroleum money
with
built
large grounds around it.
Yeah, large grounds around a neighborhood of these very large, homes with like
about as different of an environment that you could get from Sam.
Yeah,
right?
I got a lot of phone calls. So we had these cars all around, and then we invited people to come and have a picnic on the front lawn. So we had about 1,200 people there. Invite them to come into the museum to see the show. But what the real takeaway was we found a way to reach an audience that, and people even came up and said, I didn't know I was allowed to even come here. That we actually found a way to break through and have that invitation and be authentic about it. And then people kept coming. And I think that was the other piece, is how do we kind of move in a space? And kind of that spirit, and the spirit I want to bring to Sam is that at Philbrook, that museum was very stuffy. And it was a point where they had these beautiful gardens, but you couldn't walk on the grass. Places, and we were able to move that to a place that not only can you walk on the grass, that we created like mud kitchens where kids could just dig up the yard in places and create that type of environment. So this really thinking about how do you do a 180 and turn it into a space. And sometimes it's simple. The first week I was there, you couldn't walk on the grass, and kids were eating their lunch on the school bus because they didn't want them messing up the yard out there. And we flipped it over into a space where we just bought a bunch of picnic tables from Lowe's and put them all over in the garden. And sometimes just that signal of like, oh, this is a casual space. It's a place I can hang out. It's a place I can bring my family, can go a long ways.
Yeah, I'd love listening to how you talk about museums, that, places where people feel like they belong, it's relevant to them, they're invited in. So I think it's the same thing we need to be doing for downtowns to make them successful. And you get those things right, then a lot of other things follow.
It does. It absolutely follows. And those things that kind of wrap around it, those amenities, like what's the wayfinding like? How do I feel welcome? How do people treat me when I come in? Do I feel comfortable here? Are as important, if not more important, than we're hanging in the gallery on the wall.
So a lot of institutions in the downtown in general is, 5 years out of this pandemic are wrestling with how do we increase our relevancy? How do we increase visitation? People have all these choices and options on their couch, on their iPad, in their own neighborhood. Their habits were broken because of the pandemic. How do you balance sort of the tradition and the things that people have come to expect and appreciate with innovation and change and new and where you're not just sort of chasing and wandering from your mission and your reason for being?
That's right. I think what it is like we're not taking away those things that have been the anchor of the museum and those things that people love. We're adding to them. So it's not an or, it's an and. So how do you just layer upon that? So if you want to come and have a more, traditional museum experience and walk through the galleries and be able to sit in those spaces and enjoy that, please do. I want you to, we're going to allow that to happen and come and do that. If you want to come on a Thursday night and have, a DJ there and have a drink and meet your friends and maybe, see part of a film and then go through the galleries, we can do that too. If you want to go out to the Olympic Sculpture Park and walk the space with your dog and have a different experience, you can do that. If you want to go out to Volunteer Park, the Asian Art Museum, and maybe you're there for an event or be able to have, a completely different experience, I think all of those things, we can offer that. I think what we're saying is that can we offer another layer on top of it to make it more social, to make it a place that you're coming more frequent? I think often for museums, people come when there's a really big show that kind of, I need to go see that. It becomes kind of a cultural moment. And then 4 years later, maybe I'll come back for things. I want to have a space that you're coming multiple times in a month, let's say, but for different types of experiences. And it can be malleable enough to do that. And being situated downtown, I think there's an opportunity that we can be a space that, you've got 20 minutes on your lunch break, like pop in, you're a member of the museum, go up and, spend 20 minutes in the gallery to recharge and come back down. Meet somebody after work for a drink or have your last meeting there, do your podcast there, and then you can come and then be able to go into the space.
Think of it more of as a base camp.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's sort of like the Costco model where there's always things there you can count on, but then they're always changing.
That's right.
The front 25 yards of the place, right?
And that's it. And I think it's a little bit of a shift in that of like not only promoting the special exhibit that's coming through, but promoting those things that are always there. You want to have your old favorites that that you can count on being there. And then you have these new things that are always kind of layered on top of it. And then you need to have kind of this social layer because it's actually rare that people are coming to a museum alone. They're coming with other people. Or meeting people there, or bringing your family. Like, how do you kind of lean into that social space more? And then we're going to be adding a lot more to those spaces in the museum that are the public space before you kind of go up the escalators into the gallery. You'll be seeing more art in those spaces, more seating. You're going to be seeing more amenities there. We're opening actually the entrance by Hammering Man, so you'll be able to enter there, but it'll spill out.
And that's been closed for
it's been closed since before the pandemic.
Years,
but it'll create this connection to you from all the activity that's happening on the waterfront that you can come up Harbor Steps and come into that entrance. You can come over from the market and come in, or you can come off of public transportation from that end. But the idea is we're funneling all those people to that point.
And the improvements you've talked about on the ground floor would create a very different experience than what's there today. You've got incredible art, although you just changed it out, right?
Yeah.
Maybe say a few words about that, but there really is no seating. It's a pass-through space, not a gathering space.
Mostly
it's not
is.
a touchdown space.
I've been joking fairly openly. It feels like a 90s bank lobby because it kind of does feel like that in ways. But yes, we want to have it be a space that feels more inviting, a place that you actually can sit and hang out in there, but also a space that feels a little warmer. The new piece will be coming in June, which is this very playful kind of like sky of clouds that's in there. That'll be a whole different feel, but you'll be able to also see other art throughout some of those passageways through as we kind of lead people through the space. So it's just going to feel like a much more active space. And then really thinking about how do we also make the exterior feel inviting coming in and make sure that it's clean and well lit, and making kind of that block as you do come up Harbor Steps up towards the Symphony, make that more inviting and kind of well lit at night too. So I think all those things kind of work together. And how we work with our fellow businesses downtown. I want people to come to the museum and then go eat at a restaurant or go to a bar or go to another event.
We've talked a little bit about light festivals in the last couple of weeks and the idea or the opportunity potentially to bring one to Seattle in the winter season. You've been, and we've seen these kind of take off in the last 15 or so years around the world, really. And one in Portland, I think, last weekend, and one in Spain not too long ago. You led the development of a light festival in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I worked on one there that we did called Northern Lights, and we did one there, and I was part of one in Indianapolis as well. So.
What's your thought on kind of the opportunity here, light festivals in general, the success you've seen there and maybe other places?
Yeah, I think they're really exciting, and I think they actually can be very productive as far as getting the entire community involved. Mm-hmm. So there's ways with those that you can scale them to have these really big anchor events that might be a huge projection on a downtown building or something that's happening, projection mapped. But you can also have small storefronts involved or people individually doing things. And that's what's great is they become very dispersed. And that, I think, then the scope can kind of grow over time, but you also are having not just having like the city have to carry that load to bring it forward. So they've actually been really exciting, and they tend to happen in times where, January, February, where there's not a lot happening. Mm-hmm. It gets dark at 3:30 or 5 or something around then, but you have a way of kind of leaning in and kind of creating some activity in a time maybe where there isn't a lot of that activity happening. So I think that potential has been proven other places. Mm-hmm. So there's a model that's out there. But for you bringing that to Seattle, particularly with some of the connections that we'll have at the waterfront, makes a ton of sense.
Overlook, the sculpture park.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, leveraging the waterside views.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll keep kicking the tires together on this. I haven't talked to anybody yet who thinks it's a terrible idea. So
good. That's a good sign.
Yeah. And we're meeting, I think, next week with this guy from Amsterdam. So I want to pull you into this.
Yeah, pull me in.
There's something here.
I think we can make something happen. Yeah, probably do it pretty quick.
There's something here. I was down 2 nights ago on the waterfront at night, and to appreciate just the lighting down there and the level of detail and design of urban high quality lighting that we haven't always had in Seattle was quite something.
Well, and some of that can be programmed now too. So you have existing lighting, and it's already happening. Obviously, some of the buildings and sites already do it, but if you can somewhat curate that and have it kind of around things, even getting the stadiums involved and things, there's a lot that you can do.
Yeah. So what more can folks expect to see at SAM and the Sculpture Park, the Asian Art Museum, as we look ahead this year? Yeah,
you're going to see this year, one of the big anchors, we're about to open this Ai Weiwei exhibit, which will be huge not only for SAM, but also for Seattle and really for the country. It's the largest show that he's ever done. And it's in the U.S., and it'll be a really major moment. And I do expect this to be something that not only draws from our region, but from around the country to come and see it. We're running it longer than we have pretty much any show recently. So we're running from March through the entire summer. So lots of time to come and see it. But there's going to be a lot to see. It's an incredibly packed show. There's going to be film screenings on top of that. And then we also are running at all 3 sites, which is the first time we've done that as well. So there'll be a component that's at the Asian Art Museum. There'll be a component that's out at the Olympic Sculpture Park that'll be up for 2 years. And then the downtown exhibit.
Yeah, that's great.
And on top of that, we've got a lot of other exciting shows and programs that we'll be running. And then I'll be starting to roll out some of these new amenities and projects too. And we may even do a cat video festival this year.
Stay tuned. Remix is still a program of the Art Museum, is that right?
Yeah. And the next one will be coming up here the end of March, and we're theming it around Ai Weiwei, so it's going to have kind of a punk rock theme to it for this one, so bands and DJs around that. And I've been, even personally, I've DJed for 25 years.
Yeah, so I was going to get to that, your DJ background.
Maybe doing something for Remix.
What's your DJ?
My DJ name or my DJ, like what I play? Is that what
they call it? DJ name, DJ handle?
Yeah,
DJ
handle, whatever. I go by Middle West as my DJ name. So and I play a lot of arts events. That's kind of been the niche that I've played over the years and kind of leaned into a lot of parties and openings and after parties and things like that. And if I'm playing what I really want to play, I'll play a lot of like down tempo stuff and then into house music. But I'll play everything from punk to jazz to like, indie rock stuff too. It just kind of depends on the vibe.
Fun.
So, yeah.
Another creative outlet for you in addition
to it is. I need a few of those.
It's
like,
art. Yeah. I've always been impressed by Remix and the audiences it draws and the buzz and the energy around it.
We're working on kind of a surprise for the fall one that'll be something different. So I think it's nice to be able to come in and take some of these programs that have been legacy programs for the museum and then be able to add a little like tweak to them. So we've got a few things that we're working on that end. Yeah.
We have a couple standard questions to put to you, Scott.
Sure.
Maybe you answered this one earlier, but what was your first job?
Well, my first job that I made pretty good money from is I had a baseball card shop when I was 12.
Baseball card shop.
In the summers, and we did pretty well. I would go on the school bus and trade for like Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards and stuff with like basically worthless Minnesota Twins cards in Minnesota, and then sell them. But my first job I actually had a paycheck for is I worked at a trap shooting range with clay pigeons, and I sat in a little hole and fed the clay pigeon machine by hand. Incredibly dangerous, and there's this arm that swings around and you don't know what's going off, so you're just kind of loading the machine and getting out of the way. So I did that for part of a summer.
Your fingers get pinched often?
I got them caught a couple times in doing it, and then
you wearing earplugs?
I did wear earplugs down doing it.
I've done that once and I was terrible.
I was too, and like I did the job. It was not a fun job.
The shooting, not the loading. I've done once.
Both were not. Yeah, the shooting, I wasn't good at that either.
No, it's terrible.
But I did that, and then I got hired by Walmart to sell computers and in the electronics department, and I did that for a year after that. So,
and then our final question, and maybe you haven't curated this yet, but what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle?
I can tell you kind of what mine would be. At this point is. We like getting up in the morning on a Saturday, and we can walk to one of the Top Pot Donuts that's close to our house and get breakfast. And then my son and I have been going mountain biking. So, loading up the bikes and then going out to Duthie Hill and Issaquah and going out and doing that. And we've been really getting into that. So I think, adding that in the morning, coming back and going record shopping, which I like hunting out the record stores that are here in town. So I've been kind of learning some of that throughout, and I like that there's the Light and the Attic Records. It's actually has a little shop that's here, which is great. So being able to kind of do a little bit of that, and then maybe shift over to the Olympic Sculpture Park, which I love being there, not only in the park, but going down to the little pocket beach, particularly on low tide. That's next to that, and be able to walk some of the area. And then I would kind of probably go back towards downtown and find a good place to eat that I haven't tried yet by the market or some other place downtown. And I'm a huge baseball fan, so closing out with the Mariners game, it seems like that'd be kind of a good way of rounding out a Saturday.
Yeah. So, in another month or so, you'll be able to do that.
It's coming. Yeah.
That sounds like a great Seattle day. Like you sound like a legit Seattle.
I passed the test.
Yeah. And you got your Sub Pop jacket on.
Got my Sub Pop jacket on. I'm
rolling right in. That's a good day.
It is. No, we really.
How far do you have to drive to mountain bike in Tulsa to something comparable to
There
Duthie?
was actually a pretty decent one that they'd built in. It was called Turkey Mountain. It was anything but a mountain. It was like hill.
Turkey Hill,
but it wasn't bad. But a lot of the trails there are more flat, so it did not really not nearly what it is here. Now I will say just a little bit, a couple hours away from Tulsa in Bentonville and Rogers, Arkansas, they have some really good trails that are there, and that's by where the Crystal Bridges Museum is. So I went out there a few times. So you could go a little ways and have some pretty decent trails, but this is kind of a pretty elite here.
Yeah, good options around here. Well, thanks for making time for this and coming by, and for your great energy and wisdom and experience you bring to our city. I look forward to working with you and seeing all that you bring to the three great institutions and entities that make up SAM.
I appreciate that, and I've been very happy to have so many people reach out, and I think there's this collaborative spirit right now in the city, and I think we're all realizing that there's a moment here that we want to take advantage and make some really interesting things happen. So I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, you're here to that. Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Scott Stulen. We are so fortunate to have him in Seattle. I've enjoyed getting to know him over these last couple of months and looking forward to working and partnering with him in the months ahead. I really appreciate him making time to come on Seattle City Makers. And as I do each and every episode, I want to give you a recommendation of something to check out in downtown Seattle. And of course, I want to highlight the upcoming Ai Weiwei exhibition at the Seattle Art Museum, which will open on March 12th and run through September 7th of this year. This is the largest ever U.S. exhibition. It explores over 130 works created over 4 decades by the globally renowned artist Ai Weiwei, who is celebrated as a disruptor of artistic canons and a champion of free expression. This is going to be a big deal for our city, and I encourage you to check it out. Go to seattleartmuseum.org, where you can find tickets. And this exhibition will be located and present across Sam's 3 properties: the Art Museum in downtown, the Asian Art Museum in Volunteer Park, and what I understand to be, I think, 10 sculptures at the Olympic Sculpture Park. So go check this out. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Thread Theory.